Apple's got some big announcements today about AirTags, their tiny little lost item finders that were announced last April that come in small discs and allow you to use Apple's Find My network, not just to track down your iPhone or iPad or Mac, but to track down your keys or wallet or bag or anything you attach them to. And I'm going to dive into just exactly what those changes are in a minute. But first, the reason for those changes is that AirTags have gotten a lot of attention since launch. Some positive, some negative, some completely legitimate, and some completely sensational. The crux of it being, though, just specific and generalized concern over AirTags being not used to find lost items, but abused to track, even stalk people. Apple starts off by saying AirTag was designed to help people locate their personal belongings, not to track people or another person's property, and we condemn in the strongest possible terms any malicious use of our products. Now, I'm not going to get into how much of that is just because Apple. There were other products on the market long before AirTags. There will be other products on the market long after AirTags, none of which have gotten this much attention. But this kind of attention can be extremely valuable, not just for a company like Apple who can continue to improve on their own products, but for the industry in general, where maybe these kinds of questions and concerns never came up until a company with as much attention, with the gravity of Apple, entered into that market. I will point out, though, that to the best of my knowledge, AirTags are and were the first of this type of product to be built with any sort of thoughtfulness behind them, not just with things like end-to-end encryption to protect the privacy of the owners and the finders of these lost devices, but also with what I'll call tattletale capabilities to alert people to their presence if they were being misused or abused to try to follow or track somebody else's items or somebody else entirely. Because I'll be 100% completely honest with you, the attention that AirTags got at launch because Apple probably alerted people or told people or gave them the idea that this technology existed and could be misused and abused in this way for the first time, when they never knew about previous versions of this product from other companies or about the kinds of surveillance technology that have been available for a very long time. But because of even the initial safeguards built into AirTags, you had to be just the absolute dumbest of trackers or would-be stalkers to even consider wanting to use them, because they will tattletale on you. They'll pop up alerts, they'll chirp, they're registered to your Apple device with your Apple ID, and Apple will cooperate with law enforcement to provide them with the information about any and all AirTag misuse and abuse. And Apple's gone so far as to say today that they have successfully worked with law enforcement to apprehend and charge the people who are misusing and abusing the technology in exactly that way. So yes, it should never happen to anyone at all, ever. But to quote one of my favorite lines from The West Wing, there is no amount of money or manpower that can be thrown at law enforcement that equals criminals just being stupid. And AirTags were, are, and will remain just the stupidest choice of anybody ever wanting to do this. But hopefully, by example, because of all the attention that Apple's getting, it'll encourage every other vendor of this type of technology to enact the same level, even more safeguards in their products, so that as a category, this just becomes untenable, unusable for anybody who would abuse them. Never mind when the law catches up with the technology and penalties start being increased for anybody who does use location-based technology in the commission of a crime, which I think as a society is a deterrent that we should really, really want to see implemented. Apple's also provided quotes from Erica Olson, director of the Safety Net Project at the National Network to End Domestic Violence, saying the alert system Apple has notifying potential victims of any unwanted tracking has helped shine a light on a problem that existed long before AirTags came on the market. We are happy Apple is engaging in the conversation about victim safety and are continuing to improve safeguards. We hope others will follow their lead. And also from Rene Williams, Executive Director, National Center for Victims of Crime. What these unwanted tracking alerts are showing us is that Apple's system is working and, at the same time, raising awareness of the issue. If anyone is experiencing technology-enabled abuse, stalking, or harassment, we can be a resource for them in addition to law enforcement. And the announcements today are designed to build around that set of capabilities. First, with the results of an investigation that Apple ran to get into why some people were receiving unknown device alerts that caused them, especially in this high media attention environment, to think that they could possibly be being tracked by AirTags. And it turns out that in every case, those alerts weren't about AirTags at all, but they were about AirPods not being labeled, not being identified in the Find Me system, at least not properly. For example, a family member left a pair of AirPods in the car, this alert would pop up, and Apple's going to be fixing that, properly identifying the AirPods in a future update. So here's what Apple's doing to take their safeguards to the next level. First, there's a new privacy warning that's going to come up during setup that says that AirTags are meant to be used to track down your own lost items and are not meant to be misused or abused to track other people's items or other people. And they're going to explain that law enforcement can request the identity of anybody misusing or abusing them in exactly that fashion. And Apple's updating their unwanted tracking support article in their knowledge base with a lot more and better information about how AirTags, Find My, and the entire location-based device system works in general. But specifically, how and when unwanted tracking alerts might pop up, what they look like, and how you can deal with them, how you can handle them. And Apple's also introducing some new capabilities, including precision finding for unknown AirTags. Exactly the same way you can use your iPhone 11, 12, or 13 to precisely find your own lost items, you'll now be able to use them to find an unknown AirTag that might have been left or maliciously placed around you. Also, now when the AirTags make a sound, when they make that chirping sound, it'll display an alert as well, so you get both the visual and auditory disclosure that there's an unknown AirTag in your proximity. And that should help in cases where people try to hide them in a place that's not so easy to hear, or have done something like tampered with the speaker to make it impossible to hear. Apple's also refining their unwanted tracking algorithms. They're continuously updating those based on everything that they see out in the real world to help it better and faster and sooner alert you if there's a belief that you are being tracked without your knowledge or consent. And they're also adjusting the tone of the chirping, of the sound that the AirTags make, in the hopes that that'll make any unwanted or unknown AirTag just much, much easier to find. Now, I know reactions to this are going to be all across the spectrum. Some people are going to believe at a deep level that these products just should not exist, but they existed before Apple, they're going to exist after Apple, and personally, I like that a company that is as conscientious, that has such a high profile, that does get exactly this kind of attention for good and for ill, is working on this problem and is using this awareness to make the issue better, to actually try to fix the problem. And of course, some people won't care at all. They're just going to think, why aren't AirTags part of family sharing yet? And Apple has, unfortunately, nothing to report about that yet. But I'm sure they've heard that feedback as well. And then there will be some people who are actively upset about this. And I'm not talking about, people who are misusing or abusing them, but people who want to use them as a way to track down not lost items, but stolen items, and believe that the more disclosure they provide, the easier, the better the chance the thief is going to hear them and dispose of them or get rid of them, making the stolen item recovery harder. And to that, I'll just say, AirTags were only ever meant to find lost items, just like they were never meant to track or stalk anybody. They were never meant for vigilantes or theft recovery. We are not Batman or Batwoman. And I'll just point out, someone who used to be really involved in personal protection, there are so many cases of people who are injured, even killed at secondary crime locations because they thought they were Batman or Batwoman. If something is stolen rather than lost, just contact law enforcement because that is their job, not ours, not AirTags. And I also don't think this is going to make any headlines magically disappear overnight because it's both an important discussion that has to continue, and also it is just such an if it bleeds, it leads headline that it's almost compelling for anybody to run it anytime they can think of an excuse. So Apple, but also every vendor in this space who's doing half as much with twice as many products, really has to work on upping their game, on making these more and more useful as lost items retrieval and more useless as unwanted tracking and stalking and theft recovery for vigilantes. And if you want to help, if you want to get involved in the core technologies that could make this and every modern product better, check out algorithms, neural networks, and machine learning courses on today's sponsor, Brilliant. Basically, everything that the next generation of authentication is going to be based on, but also math, science and computer science, physics, quantum mechanics, game theory, cryptocurrency, and more. Because Brilliant is the online interactive STEM learning platform with a growing catalog of courses specifically crafted to help you learn concepts by working through them yourself in visual, hands-on ways. And I cannot stress this enough. I wish school had been like this because it would have just so much better. For example, have you ever wanted to learn how coding works, but were put off by overly complicated traditional computer programming courses? Well, Brilliant has actual fun, interactive challenges that let you shift blocks of pseudocode around, receive immediate feedback, and get results. You feel like you're just having fun, solving puzzles, but the whole time you're learning how algorithms work. And once you know that, coding becomes way less intimidating because here's the thing. Everyone starts somewhere, and you can get started right now, today, for free. Just visit brilliant.org/Ritchie or click the link in the description. And the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Just click the button on the screen or go to brilliant.org/Ritchie. Clicking on that button really helps out the channel, and so does hitting up this playlist for way more on the future of key Apple technologies like this. Just hit up that playlist, and I'll see you in the next video.